Hello there. Welcome to Noon Prayer Watch. It's Friday. The weekend is here. Shabbat Shalom. Hope y'all had a great week. This is Jacob coming to you from Japan. Thank you for tuning in to Noon Prayer Watch or catching up on the replay later at Noon Prayer Watch. We are here on the wall, watching, praying, discussing what is happening in our communities, our cities, our nations, our planet. This Noon Prayer Watch stuff, this Watchman concept that we constantly talk about, it's a very interesting. Is it an analogy? It's analogous to what we do here at this ministry, what all churches, all people of the kingdom should be doing anyway. But that's a specific part of our identity here at this ministry, and so we bring it up a lot. We have these programs, we pray, we have meetings at the actual church itself. We have worship songs along these lines. Specifically, the story of Nehemiah, if you've ever read that. And so that is what we're doing here. You're out there and you're watching. And sometimes you're on the wall watching. It doesn't sound like a glamorous job. It doesn't always sound like the most exciting thing to do. But it's what we're called to do. And it's not, you don't even necessarily need everybody doing it. We all kind of do it in a way. We all should be aware. But what I mean by this is you have people watching and saying what's going on out there. And as long as we all have our callings and everything. As long as you're aware, as long as everybody is aware, you don't need everybody on the wall watching. You have to have people in the city doing things. And I'm saying all of this because I was reading a post by a person who knew about history, talking about castles, talking about walls, and we watch movies, we see like movies in medieval times. You have castles and then the big army outside, and there's all these people on the wall and everything. You see, it's this big deal, but in reality, there's so many castles. Like if you go to Europe, especially, even in Japan, I guess we have a lot of castles here. That's one of my hobbies. I like visiting those places, learning about the history of different areas and things like that. But a lot of the concepts, a lot of the tactics are quite similar. And I didn't really realize this. I kind of knew this, but on a wall, you don't really actually have all that many people. It's expensive to pay so many people to sit on the wall and watch, especially when, nothing's happening. Very few people are actually doing that, but you still need to have a few people on the wall looking out and seeing what's happening. And when we look out today and we see, I was reading the news. I was really I was preparing today. What are we going to talk about? Looking in Asia, looking in America, looking in the Middle East. Things are happening, but right now a lot of things aren't happening. But I feel like things are about to start happening. So today's topic is the calm before action. We say the calm before the storm, but storm sounds kind of negative, and I didn't want to say storm. And so I feel like action's about to happen. Things are about to start shifting, about to start moving. I'm looking at the news, what's happening, but also within my life personally right now. My family and I, a lot of things going on. We're in the process of some big shifts, but at this moment, we're just slowly working towards that process. After I finish here, I have one of those things to do, some preparation I got to do. And you'll probably hear about that in the future. We also have, of course, from Christian Center, we have a team of our School of Ministry students, the youngins, as well as some leaders coming over here to Japan. We're going to do ministry here in a couple of weeks. You probably have heard about that if you are familiar with what's going on within Christian Center Shreveport. So we're preparing for all of that too. But at this moment right now, I feel like there's not a lot of action happening in the Middle East with, the Iran, America, Israel. I guess Israel is involved. I don't know anymore. America is mainly involved with dealing with Iran right now, and they're having talks. Doesn't seem like that's going anywhere, and so in this next week, maybe we're going to see a resumption of military activities. So we're going to keep praying, keep watching what's happening there. One big news item is that the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, has pulled out of OPEC, which, not going to get into what that is, but basically they have price controls on oil, and that could disrupt things. In the 1960s, UAE joined OPEC, and they're part of that regime, and they could just start selling oil at whatever price, if I'm not mistaking what the impacts of this are. And that could change oil prices. That could improve the world economy, because oil prices are quite high because of this conflict in Iran right now. And we'll see what actually happens with Iran as well. Israel also, things are happening, but it's nothing like huge or noteworthy at this moment. So we're going to keep watching those situations and address them accordingly as they come along. Here in Japan as well, the economy is suffering a little bit because of that conflict in the Middle East. It's based on exports, and so when things become more expensive, all the prices of everything here are more expensive. But the government is doing things to, if you haven't heard, our money here is very weak against the dollar, and so they did some actions to make it stronger, and it jumped. So that hopefully will help relieve some of the issues here. Everything, the prices of everything are going up. They've been steadily rising over the years, but especially this last year, it's been really shooting up. And you've heard me talk about Japan and the birth rate and everything like that. And these are some of the impacts. Japan's also, of course, struggling with labor shortages, and should they allow increase immigration to allow foreign workers to come? A lot of people aren't happy about that, so there's all that drama. But nothing of particular to talk about. And so I feel like that this isn't necessarily like a prophetic word, more like a prophetic status report, looking at what's happening and finding a theme among them all. And the theme is that things are happening. It's kind of calm. It's not calm, but kind of calm, because more things are about to start happening in the future. And so that's kind of a very vague topic. I'm sorry if you're not a fan of vague things like that, but that's all I have to talk about today. And so I'm going to address that a little bit here today. I was reading, however, when it comes to, like, reading and on a spiritual level, what's happening, I really feel we always should do this, but we really should be, as action is about to take place, I feel like that we really should be listening to the voice of God. And we always should be doing that, of course, but especially right now, it's a time to really be listening for what he wants to do, and to recognize, we have to remember, he speaks in many different ways. And sometimes those of us, if you hear from the Lord, you become maybe comfortable with one way he speaks to you. For example, let's say dreams. Dreams are a way the Lord can speak to you. Lots of examples of that in the Bible. Lots of examples, despite what some people in modern times think of how things work. Lots and lots of examples. It's very biblical. And some people hear from the Lord that way, and you might get familiar. You're always expecting dreams, and maybe the dreams dry up. You don't get anything. But the Lord is still speaking to you regardless. And so you might need to readjust your spiritual sensors to try to pick up the signal. Don't be complacent. Being complacent, getting too comfy is not good, because you get sloppy when you do that. And when I say these sorts of things, I'm talking mostly about myself, of course, but I think some of you out there might be able to relate to that, because we're all human and we all have some of the same experiments. But this is not a prophetic word necessarily. This is just what I've been gathering. And I did want to say, those of you that don't know, my actual professional, quote unquote professional background is journalism. That is what I studied in university, and I worked a little bit in that industry before I came here to Japan. And I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking about how that wasn't like you get prophetic words, you pray to the Lord, you go before him, and you try to, especially when you're young, like I was, obviously, when I was a teenager, you try to find your path in life. And sometimes the path that you're on doesn't feel like 100% the path that you should be on, the way you visualized it, but sometimes that's the only path that you can take. And so I had what I felt like I needed to do in in my life. And when I went to university, you only have the programs to choose from that they have available. You don't always get exactly what you want. You can, of course, go to different universities, but for me, that was not feasible. I went to a local university, Shreveport, Louisiana, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my time there. But the program that I chose wasn't exactly my ideal. And I ended up doing all sorts of things I never thought I would do, and a lot of extracurricular stuff, getting involved with the school and everything, and student government, things like that. And I learned, I tell people, because that's a big, and I think, things have changed big time because of politics, but people ask, is university worth it? And a lot of universities are, because that's the thing. It's like student debt is a big problem. People go to university and spend $40,000 plus, and they're in debt, and hard to get your feet on, get off the ground. Hard to get going when you have to spend 10, 20 years paying off your university fees, and you didn't necessarily get a job in the field that you spent all that money studying for. And I don't criticize you or you guys out there if you've done that or know someone who's done that. I'm not criticizing. You got to do what you got to do, whether it's getting student loans or whatever. But there are cheaper options out there, and that's the path I took. I went to a place that was very affordable, close to home, and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't my choice. I had all of these grand ideas of what I was going to do, but I went on that path. And I learned a lot of things that I use. And it was a lot of, I learned, of course, things in class and the classes that I took. But on the side, that's what we don't talk about when we talk about university. People think and you might be, I know a lot of you probably have this opinion, but people are too pragmatic. They're like, this is what you learn and this is what you get out of it, and it's not worth it. But when you interact with humans, especially a lot of different humans, a lot of different people from different backgrounds and identities, you can learn a lot of things you will not otherwise learn, especially in a place like Louisiana, where the average person that you meet on the street kind of the same. It's the culture that we have. But universities are a bit different. It's a place where a lot of an eclectic group of people gather. And I learned a lot of things there that I use all the time here. Yeah, you go to class, you learn things from your professor, but I spent a lot of time in the offices of my professors, talking to them one-on-one about stuff. Some of them, they like to have me in there, and we hung out and talked about stuff, with whatever happening in the news, happening on campus. And that's where I learned a lot of stuff. You learn it through the relationships that you build. And this is a concept we can apply to many other different things. Sometimes we get too pragmatic, and I'm one of those people that are very pragmatic, but you never know what you're going to learn. And that's why you have to listen to the Lord for what you do. Because Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 13 about this concept of things being revealed in part, like prophetically, when you're getting prophetic words. I believe that's where it is, 1 Corinthians 13. Because he's talking about prophecy going away and when the perfect comes. But until the perfect comes, we only prophesy in part. We only hear things partially. We don't get the full picture because we can't be trusted. We humans cannot be trusted with the full picture. That's a concept you see from the very beginning of the Bible in the Garden of Eden. We were not given all the information, like things about the difference between good and evil, how to judge it. That was locked behind a fruit and a tree, and we were told not to eat it, but we ate it anyway. Because we're not mature enough. You have to grow up. You have to become mature. And the older you get, the more information you're allowed to access because you've shown responsibility in the past. As a father, right now, I, of course, got to do that with my daughter. Not so much with information because she's not capable of processing information, verbal information. But when it comes to action, when it comes to the things that she's allowed to use, allowed to touch, allowed to eat, you have to withhold until she is ready for it. And sometimes you get frustrated. And I want to encourage you, any of you guys out there who, if you ever get frustrated, like, Lord, what am I supposed to do? You feel lost. that's okay. That's how the system is supposed to work. Because if you feel lost, for one, you're trusting in the Lord anyway, so you don't need to worry about being lost. That's easier said than done, of course. But there's always something that you need to do. There is a step or two that you're capable of doing right now that you can take, and you can make progress. And you take those steps little by little. We take the land, as Exodus says. You take those steps. You show that you're a good steward with the little that you have, and more comes. And by the time the more comes, you are more patient, more mature, you have more stability, and you're able to handle bigger, more complicated things. Being a good steward is a very important concept to always remember. And it's not, you can learn it. I can tell you about it. You can learn it in church. But you have to constantly I have to constantly remind myself, and you have to constantly remind yourself about these sorts of things. And so I'm saying all this because if you have all of the information, you're not going to make the right choice. In general, you're just not. So let's apply that. I'm speaking in principles here. Let's get a little bit more practical. What does that mean? If the Lord, gives you a dream or sends a prophet your way and gives you a very specific prophetic word, you're supposed to do this. What do we do? Okay, we got that. Sounds like the word of the Lord. I'm going to go do that. But the path that you take to that destination might not be the path you need to take to grow, to be able to do what the Lord wants you to do once you get to that destination. That was really maybe complicated, what I just said right there. I'll give you a more specific example. I'm here in Japan doing things, teaching, doing lots of different things. It's hard to, people are like, what do you do in Japan? And it's like, how much time do you got? Because I'm doing 10 things at any given time. Lots of little things. And that's what I've always done. That is who I am. When I lived in America, lived in Shreveport, when I was in university even, going back to that, but after university I graduated, went and I started working. What was my job at the company that I worked at? I told people I was, this, but I did so many different things. Because the specific, it's like 10 small jobs and one big job. Kind of like a utility, like a Swiss Army knife, a utility person. I would do any specific random job someone needed to do that no one was like, that's their main job. They'd make me go do it. And I love doing it. That's just who I am. And it's crazy that I keep finding myself in those situations. Like we say the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none. That's what I feel like all the time. I wish to master certain things, but I never have time because I'm doing all these other things. That's who God made me to be. Other people, God makes them, you're going to do this specific job, and they're happy to do that. They don't want to do anything else. And that's what I'm doing here in Japan as well. But I will say that if the Lord told me, you're going to be doing, teaching in Japan, I did that for a long time. When I went to university, I would not have studied the media stuff, the journalism things that I studied. Especially the stuff about communication, because you can the thing is, like, if you want to be an educator, you go to university and study education, learn how to teach all this information, how to teach math, how to teach science, all these things. And generally some communication classes, which is a different field, you have to take because they're like speech 101, that's a required class from the university that I went to. But all of the different about the communication theory and persuasion and all that sort of stuff that I had to study, I wouldn't have learned that had I studied purely education. Maybe I don't know what electives they're required to take, but I'm shocked all the time that I'm using that information. A lot of people say that my field is useless. Because they're looking at the bottom dollar, like how much money do you make from that field. But it's not necessarily about what is the average pay of whatever job coming out of this field. It's how you apply the information that you learn, of course. And I have been able to apply it in a lot of unique ways that has helped me, and has helped me help others, and help me in the little portion that I have, help further the kingdom here where the Lord has put me. So if the Lord tells you everything, then you're just going to make a beeline for that probably. That's what I would do anyway. I don't, maybe, you know, other people, they're not like me. They function differently. But I'm sure some of you out there are like that, right? So I was just thinking about that. I was meditating on that. And so I want to encourage you, if you're watching out there, if you don't have the big picture, that's okay. Then don't feel bad about it either. If none of us, no matter how old you are, no matter what you've been through, have reached our maximum potential. If you are still alive, there is still time to grow. There is still time to grow. I would like to think that Moses was very old when he started his destiny, 80 years old, 80-ish, or is it 70-ish? I keep getting the numbers mixed up. He was an elderly man. He went, and that is when God called him, sent him to Egypt, had him bring out the Israelites, took him to the wilderness, wandered around with them in the wilderness for 40 years, around 120-ish, finally made it to the promised land, although he didn't go in himself. And he probably wasn't expecting that that to happen. You know, you're 80 years old. You've been a shepherd your whole life. You were a prince. You left that life for decades. Started a family. Probably not expecting to do something like that. Anywho, going back to the topic, calm before action. Let's listen. I was reading. Did I say this earlier? I was reading, and I talked about, of course, you know, listening to the Lord. There was a song that I'm on the worship team here in Japan, and we're playing on Sunday, and it talks about, it's maybe you've heard of it. It's Midst, like in the middle of Midst, by the Belonging Company and Andrew Holt. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the message the pastor gave last Sunday, if not the Sunday before, talked about when you hear the Lord, sometimes that voice is small and it's quiet, like in the story of Elijah after he fled the battle at Mount Carmel with the prophets of Baal. Sometimes that voice is small. You get like I said, you get comfortable with dreams or however you hear the Lord, and then they stop and you don't know what's going on. Sometimes you got to be quiet, got to be calm and listen. But it had lyric in the course of this song. It talks about, like, Holy Spirit of God, we recenter our hearts again. Move however you want right here in our midst, like a fire or a flood, which is, you know, a strong force of nature, or a whisper like the wind. Move however you want right here in our midst. And God is with us. I know you know that. Of course, he is with us. He is in the middle of us. He is our neighbor. He is the Hebrew word they use for that is Shekinah. He is there with us. And don't forget that. Sometimes you get caught up with the news and your life and everything like that, but Lord is right there with you the whole time. He's speaking. And you might not feel like you've been hearing something, and so you might need to, again, readjust your spiritual radar in order to pick up on what is going on, because things are going on, and I think action is about to happen. As an American, one of the big events in history is June 6th, 1944. That was the invasion of Normandy, not just Normandy, but all of Northern Europe in World War II in France. And I would imagine on May 1st, today is May 1st, by the way, welcome to May. Hopefully the weather where you're at is good. I imagine the month prior to that invasion, there was a lot of preparations. There was a lot of calm before the action that's about to take place. And oh boy, did action take place once June came around. There's actually a movie, I think, coming out about it. I don't know when it's coming out, but it's about the weather leading up to that invasion, because weather is really squirrely, especially with boats. And if you don't get the weather down right, it could mess everything up. That's why, actually, America did not invade Japan by boat. They dropped the big bombs out here because the weather was really, really bad, and it would have made things a lot more complicated, a lot more loss of American and allied lives. And that was a factor in the decision they made to do that. So prepare yourselves, prepare your hearts. I'm not going to pull it up on the screen, but in Revelation, which is what I was reading, that just happened to be where I was reading today, Revelation chapter 1 and 2. Revelation gets wild, as you know. It's a very amazing, crazy book, and I mean that in a good way. I'm not criticizing it. But of course, John starts off writing letters to the churches, and the phrase that you guys have heard it so many times, but it's so important. The phrase that you hear in every letter that he writes to every church, the Son of Man is speaking to him, telling him to write these things to different churches. He says, the one who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. And we say hear, and we talk about this a lot here at this ministry. When we're talking about listening, we're talking about hearing. That's the English word that we use. But the Hebrew Jewish concept behind it is much deeper than that. You have this same sort of language in Deuteronomy chapter 6 with the Shema, the most famous prayer in Judaism, where it says, Shema Yisrael, listen, Israel, I am the Lord your God, I am one. But listen is not a good translation. We don't have a word that encapsulates that Hebrew concept. I always like to say it's like digesting and then you do an action, right? You hear, you receive information and you digest it, you think about it, you meditate on it, you dwell on it. It's like you eat it and you digest it. I don't know if this is intentional, but there are certain other parts of the Bible where it talks about eating scrolls. And that's a spiritual thing. I don't think anyone's physically eating books. Don't imagine that's very tasty. But on a prophetic level, there's something there where you don't just read something or hear it, you digest it. And then after you've digested it and it has impacted you in some way, you do an action. And so right now, maybe that's what we're happening right now. That's what's happening right now. Action is coming. We're going to be doing things. We're going to be moving forward soon. But right now we're digesting, we're gathering information, we're preparing. And, it's like you're going to play the sport or do some sort of exercise. You can't do that on an empty stomach. You need to eat protein, some sort of healthy meal. Got to eat that, got to digest that, get those calories or whatever, the energy within you ready to go out and play basketball or whatever it is you're doing, working out. So that's, I think, where we're at right now. And let's listen. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's listen to what the Lord is saying. Because he's speaking and he has always interesting things to say. Because you can be physically ready to do something, but you also have to be mentally ready as well. And, like with sports, I'm sorry, I like to watch sports, like a lot of guys and girls too. You can work out and eat all the food, do all the things that you need to do, but then there's the mental side of things. There's the even philosophical side of things, especially if you're doing like some kind of sport where you're facing an opponent. You can physically be in the right condition, but mentally, where are you at? And for us, those of us in the kingdom, spiritually, where are we at? Need to get ready. Things are happening. It's calm right now, but it's about to not be so calm. And that's a good thing. I'm excited. We should be excited too. Get excited. Jesus is going to win. Victory is on the way. Thank you for watching. It's kind of a different kind of an episode, but this is what I have today. And I hope something in this has been able to encourage you. Maybe any information you are encouraged with, it's always best to pass it on to others because we're all humans and we all experience the same sorts of things. And we all need to encourage each other. We're all part of the body and we need each other. We edify each other, boost each other up, and we work together and we achieve a victory together with Jesus as the head of us. So thank you for watching today. Have a blessed weekend. please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That's a small way you can help support this ministry. And if you'd like to donate to us financially, you can do so in the CCS app in the respective app store of the platforms of technology that you like to use. Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend. Always remember to always bring order to chaos. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.